Thank you for joining the Once Changing the World, which is India's first future tech meets sustainability podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Sameer Arif, who's the founder of Swytchd. He's ex-Jaguar. So, Sameer, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. I think the entire world has changed post-COVID. The dynamics have been so awesome. Almost all industries have, pretty much got upended on how they function. And today, I think Gen Z are largely, on the digital platform, and we are also exploring the opportunity of, instead of buying things, renting out things. And Swytchd is one of the first of its kind here in model here in India, which is looking at an all-inclusive electric vehicle subscription. What was the idea? Where did that originate from? And how do you think is your startup gonna help possibly us transition the most polluted nation in the world to a cleaner, greener nation?
I agree with you. I generally don't call it we're saying rental economy, but I think mostly it's sharing economy. That's probably a more apt millennial and Gen Z word to say. Very simply, the sharing economy model or a subscription for a depreciating asset like a car or a two-wheeler, right? At the end of the day, these are depreciating assets. Unlike a house which appreciates, you buy this vehicle, as soon as you roll off, it's dropped in value, right? Now India is an ownership market, but this is slowly changing. Again, millennials and Gen Z want to be asset light. Swytchd's idea came from a multitude of factors. One factor was that, from a personal experience, I've never owned a car. And that was one because I was very lucky to be a very young manager at Jaguar Land Rover, where as an early manager, you got one vehicle, a Jaguar or a Land Rover product that you could change every 6 months or 6,000 miles, 8,000 kilometers, which was brilliant. So every 6 months, I was getting a new car. Then I made it to senior leadership and I was getting two vehicles. So I had, 2.5 crores of assets sitting around, but I never owned it. I was just having access to it. So, as a person who's never owned a car, has had great cars, it was, why aren't normal people doing this? Secondly, this kind of subscription model for electric vehicles was taking off in Europe and the United States. Now, the biggest hurdles to electric vehicle adoption, there's three. They're very expensive. So the upfront cost is very high, between 30 to 50% more expensive than traditional petrol or diesel vehicles, right? Add to that range anxiety, which is very simply where and how is this going to do the range it says it does? And then charge anxiety, which is where and how do I charge this vehicle? So these things stop people. The same problems existed in Europe and the United States. Now, companies like Onto, ONTO in the United Kingdom, Steer in the United States, started piloting a subscription model, and they did fantastically well. Consumers were coming in because your upfront investment to get into this is very minimal compared to if you wanted to buy this using an EMI or loan system. And everything is included. So as a customer, you just have to drive. You don't have to worry about anything else. Insurance, servicing, breakdown support is all included in one payment. And fundamentally, this model has to be adapted to come to India, and which is what I looked to see if there was an opportunity, was someone doing this. And in reality, no one was. And so I looked at that opportunity and thought, well, from a two-wheeler and four-wheeler standpoint, because India is unique, where a lot more two-wheelers are sold than four-wheelers. But you have to do both to get enough consumers to try an EV, get into a subscription model. And experience the benefits of not having asset ownership. Imagine being able to upgrade every month to a new vehicle. You lose your job, you can stop your subscription and just go into something else. So that's just a couple of benefits, but that's how it's really started. And it's so far taken off fairly well in a very small scale.
Lovely. How cool is that? I think, like I said, earlier in the conversation, that the entire dynamics is changing. And I think going forward next couple of years, things will be much, much different on how we travel, commute, even, the ownership thing, specifically Gen Z, I think their consumption behavior is changing. And I think the brands need to go where the future is, and the Gen Z is looking at these different new models of how they live and they consume and they play. You mentioned of the pros of ownership versus a rental model. Would you like to elaborate that on that a little better? Because I think, today even the banks are going bonkers when in acquiring customers. They're going all out and giving out lots of facilities to kind of break for the EMIs and stuff like that. Could you elaborate on why would somebody go ahead and not buy a car versus rent a car?
Yeah, so let's get a few things also again from a language standpoint sorted, right? In my industry, a rental is a short-term rental, like a Zoom car or a Hertz or an Avis, where you rent for an hour, a day, 2 days, 10 days. You're going on a holiday, you're a corporate traveler. Then we have leasing, which is long-term, 12 months, 24, 36 months commitment to a vehicle. You don't own it, but you lease it and then you return it. Then obviously we have ownership. At the end of a cycle, you own it or you own it outright. Subscription is what a new age term is, which is a pure monthly subscription, like Amazon Prime, like Netflix, right? Where it is technically a monthly rental. You're not owning it, but it's a pure, from a language standpoint, a subscription. I think the most important point to note about why a subscription versus the ownership model, right? Now, in the ownership model, when we have to take the majority of normal people, right? 90% of all vehicles in India are in some way, shape, or form in a finance, right? So people are buying them through a loan. That's the traditional way of buying a vehicle. They put down a down payment, which is usually anywhere from 15 to 25% of the value of the vehicle, right? So let's say you're buying a 1 lakh rupee bike, you have to put down 50 to 25,000. In most cases, if your credit score isn't great, you're going to put down 25,000. There is no escaping, right? Then you have to pay the bank an EMI to own the vehicle anywhere from 3 to 5 years, right? So you have to commit to that kind of time frame. Then you've got that. Then the insurance is separate purchase. Then the maintenance, servicing charges are all your headache. If you break down, you have to get breakdown assistance. That's your headache, right? So all of these things. And we were talking about asset depreciation. You buy the vehicle for 1 lakh, 3 to 5 years later, it's worth 25,000. So what you get back is your down payment essentially, right? And you can't upgrade, you can't get rid of it. Now and then let's start bringing in some other issues. Let's say Eddie got a vehicle, right? Eddie, you're a podcast guy. Let's say you lose your job. You can no longer make any podcasts. Suddenly you've got an asset lying around. You're paying EMI towards it. You have no job. You have no income. How are you going to pay that EMI? If you try and sell it, the bank will charge you foreclosure charges. In most cases, they won't even let you sell it, right? So now you've got an asset that is depreciating and you've got to pay EMI on. So that's a headache again. If you leave Karnataka, let's say you leave Bangalore and you go to Chennai and you get a new job there. If you take this vehicle from Bangalore to Chennai, the police there will harass you because you have to have it re-registered from a Karnataka board to a Tamil Nadu board, right? You've paid lifetime tax in Karnataka. You have to claim it back from Karnataka from the same RT you had it registered, then pay it back in Chennai. What a headache, right? So all of this stuff you're now starting to understand, because if you try and sell it, you're going to not get that value anyway, right? You're going to sell it to a used car retailer. The only way he makes money is by giving you a really low price, so then he can sell it back for a higher price. With subscriptions, it's a fundamentally different ballgame. Your upfront cost for a 1 lakh vehicle with Swytchd, for example, let's say I charge you 3,500 rupees a month for it, right? So your upfront cost is 3,500 plus security deposit of 3,500, 7,000 rupees versus 25,000 rupees. That cash is saved. You can do something with that cash. You can go on a holiday. You can stay a night at the Taj if you really want to do that. Or you can invest it somewhere. That's money you've saved. There's no insurance payment. There's no servicing payment, no breakdown support payment. It's all included in the price you pay, right? Let's now start looking at other things. With Swytchd, we even refund the electricity costs of charging the vehicle. right? So we pay for you to drive in very, very simple terms, right? No one else does that. So now you're not even incurring the electricity costs. You've got a new vehicle that you're using. You've gotten bored of it. Next month, Eddie says, I want to switch my vehicle to an Ola S1 Pro from an Ather 450X. Great. Swytchd will deliver that to you. Pick up this vehicle. You don't even move. You've done minimal paperwork to do that. You sign a new contract. That's it. Payment goes up and down. Now, let's say you've lost your job. You've got a vehicle. You stop your subscription. That's it. Your payments immediately stop. You move from Bangalore to Chennai. You stop your subscription here. You start a new subscription there. Right? Every time there is a new vehicle, the 460 comes out, the new Nexon comes out, the new Mahindra EV comes out, you can stop this subscription, go into the new vehicle. That is unbelievable value, right? You go on a long holiday, you don't need to have to pay for this. So subscriptions are a huge amount of value. They save money upfront. They're everything included, so your mind share is reduced. You can concentrate on other things. And at the end of the day, they let you enjoy fantastic products without a long-term commitment. I personally, I don't know why people buy cars or bikes. I just don't. But India is an ownership model because we're geared that way so far.
Right. I completely understand. I think in the next few years, maybe the mindset will change because, yes, there are so many dynamics playing out. Mm-hmm. And like you said, once the larger population understand about this subscription model and the pros which are loaded on it, I think there could be a transition from, ownership model to a subscription model that you're talking about. Earlier in the course of the conversation, you also mentioned about the hurdles to the adoption of electric vehicles. Now, everybody knows the positives or the pros of moving or transitioning to a cleaner energy, and the EVs. But like you said, there are hurdles. There are genuine infrastructure issues and problems. Do you have a plan, a roadmap to sort out these problems of adoptions of EVs?
The simple answer to electric vehicle adoption en masse, right, is multifold. So if we take the gold standard of EV adoption, which is Norway or Sweden or Finland, where EVs are greater than 70% of new vehicles sold, right, are all EVs. So it's basically only EVs. They've had a comprehensive government policy on EV adoption. A lot of subsidy, huge subsidies, to a point where a Tesla was sometimes cheaper to buy than a Honda because of the subsidy grant that was given. Really now, significant taxes on fuel for them. For if you bought a petrol vehicle, upfront taxes have gone up if you buy a fuel vehicle. Investing in infrastructure from a government as well as private player standpoint, allowing consumers to have charging infrastructure in their home, making electricity affordable, cheap, and so on and so forth. So even in India, it has to take a comprehensive approach, right? EVs will only work with the ecosystem, right? It's taken many years for us to have a fuel station every 5 kilometers, right? We're talking 50, 60 years of constant development. EVs will get there much faster because setting up infrastructure for an EV is much faster because electricity supply already exists. You have to set up charging points. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about explosions of, tanks if you store lots of fuel in there. You can just set something up very easily. So the government policy, India has one, but it's not overly comprehensive. FAME 2 is fantastic. And FAME 3 and FAME 4, we have to see what the government comes out as. So that's a subsidy question. Then there is the infrastructure standpoint. And infrastructure is in multifold, right? Because India is a more complicated and a very large market and a very large country. You've got 2-wheelers and 4-wheelers, you've got commercial vehicles, you've got 3-wheelers. It's not Europe where it's just cars. 2-wheelers aren't really spoken about. So you need to have slow chargers, fast chargers, rapid chargers, and multiple different types of rapid chargers. Everyone at home never has 3-phase electricity, right? In a normal house, you have single-phase electricity, which means you can't fast charge. You can only slow charge. So there's inherent issues that you have to deal with. The government is setting up infrastructure, but lots of private players are also coming in. But the other problem is there's not enough choice of vehicles. From a four-wheeler standpoint, you can count the number of vehicles in your palm. Tigor, Nexon, now Tiago. Mahindra has one EV, right? MG has one EV. Hyundai has one EV. Kia has one EV. And the price points are so varied and it's so expensive generally that majority of people can't afford them. The Tata Nexon petrol top model is under 14 lakhs, I think 13 something lakhs. The Tata Nexon EV top model is almost touching 19.5 lakhs, right? Everything included. So that price difference, you're never going to spend on fuel. So someone is making a conscious lifestyle decision to buy a Nexon EV, not because they want to save costs on fuel, because they want to project that they're an EV buyer. So the way that Swytchd does it is comprehensively handholding. We do a lot of the hard work and we don't get a lot of reward for it, but that's okay. I think someone has to do it. So when you come and talk to Swytchd and you join our wait list, that first phone call from Swytchd isn't 1 or 2 minutes. It's anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on all the questions that a customer wants. And no one really knows why they're going in for, let's say, an Ather or a Nexon, right? They may want one, but then they don't have a charging point in their house. So in which case they may have to get a Bounce or a Revolt where you can take the battery and charge at home. So the vehicle that they may want is something they don't get. They take something else. And then if they want a charging point in their house, Swytchd does the installation. Obviously, the customer pays for that cost because it's a one-time investment. But they can trust us to do that, because we come certified, as electricians are certified. We then give them access to a lot of different public charging points, right? Like Kazam EV, Bolt EV, Ather Grid. All of these, they've set up their own public charging points which customer can go and charge. Tata Power, Bescom. So consumers then have access to tens of thousands of chargers in case of an emergency charge. But the data is simple. 90% of all charging is done at home, right? And now offices are setting up and so on. But that handholding is very important and very needed. But manufacturers, subscription businesses like me, governments, charging infrastructure providers, insurance companies, and banks all need to come together to make EVs actually accessible and affordable. Today, they're not.
We all know that, cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta are extremely heavily polluted cities, and IC vehicles are the major cause of air pollution here in India. And in fact, a report suggested that 8% of total greenhouse gas emissions in India are from transport sector, and Delhi, it seems, exceeds 30%. And that's the reason it's I think second year the most polluted city in the world. I hope the stakeholders, the government, the OEMs, they all come together and take an urgent decision, because we all talk about climate emergency, but somehow I see a lack of urgent reaction to the emergency. Because even India, if you look at the net zero goal, it's 2070. I don't even understand or know whether we have the privilege of waiting out till 2070. Can you talk a little bit more about Swytchd? You mentioned that you have two-wheelers and four-wheelers. What are the vehicle brands that you provide? And is this a B2B or a B2C business?
Yeah, sure. So Swytchd provides two-wheelers from multiple brands. We have Athers, we have Olas, we have Bounce Infinity E1s, we have Revolt RV400s. We also have some Hero electric vehicles. And we'll work with any manufacturer. We're going to explore adding some more. So, new age startups like Oben, Ultraviolet, we're going to have some talks with them. TVS has its vehicle, Bajaj has its vehicle. So we'll be adding more and more as consumer demand comes for those vehicles. But we're happy to work with any manufacturer that designs, manufactures, and wholesales its vehicles. And designing is very important. What Swytchd won't do is work with a kit assembler. someone who's buying a kit from China and then assembling it here, slapping their badge on it. That's not something that we're okay to do. Design is a very important aspect, and you need to be designing in-house and manufacturing and wholesaling, right? And from a four-wheeler standpoint, we have Tata vehicles, so Nexon and the Tigor. We have MG vehicles, MG ZSEV, the Hyundai Kona. So that's what we offer now. We haven't really looked to offer anything else, but again, like I said, we'll work with any OEM that's designing, manufacturing, and wholesaling its vehicles, and there's customer demand for them, and that's also very important. So we do both, actually. Primarily, we're a B2C business where we deal directly to the end consumer. We also do have B2B clients, not from a Swiggy and Zomato logistics perspective. I think there's companies already tackling that problem. We're tackling the problem of corporates with our employees who don't have schemes that can give their employee an electric vehicle, right? If you also look at it this way, a lot of people do business travel, right? They drive their car up and down for business, they drive their two-wheelers, but no programs exist to convert those fleets into electric, right? Corporates want to do it, but they can't be bothered. Their HR team doesn't know what to do. And the employees aren't really asking for it because they're too scared. So Swytchd makes that very easy. He says, don't worry, we'll give you an employee program. It works very, very well because they can claim the lease payment as an expense. And the employee gets it as a perk. So they're very happy. The employee satisfaction, retention goes up. And as you know, in India, people leave jobs crazily, right? Especially in the IT industry, to jump ship. So all of this works in their favor. So Swytchd handles that as well.
Right. Could you elaborate a little bit on the business model? Because as a startup, especially which has been bootstrapped, being asset heavy, because you are acquiring all the cars, you're buying all the cars, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that, and what's the price point? Supposing if I'm a customer, what's the price point?
Sure. So the business model is multifold, right? There's no one single answer. We own some vehicles that I bought with cash. That was my initial investment into the business, just under 1 crore or so. So for those vehicles, we bought with cash, right? After that, we were looking for finance agreements. So we have operating lease agreements. We'll also do structured debt. So we'll get debt and then buy vehicles from that debt, do traditional auto loans. But as a startup, it's very difficult to get debt financing in place, right? But if you're from the industry, you have some contacts, you've got a good base, you've proven that you can make revenue, you've got good customers, then things become slightly easy, but it's a complicated way to do it. So we're not asset heavy, we're not asset light at the same time, but there's a good mix of them, right, that we have to do. Subscriptions of Swytchd start for a two-wheeler, currently start at about 3,999, so just under 4,000, all inclusive, to about 5,500. So for Hero Photon, it's 4,000. For Aether and Ola, it's about 5,500 plus GST, which is only 5%. For an EV, 5,700, right? All inclusive. And that comes down because we refund the electricity cost to you. So it's not 5,700, it's 5,700 minus how much ever it costed you to drive that vehicle. Right? So a customer keeps winning at the end of the day, depending on how much they drive, because it's a good incentive for them. They get actually getting money paid back to them for driving. And for a four-wheeler, because four-wheeler is significantly more expensive, but we match it to what an EMI would be on a long-term period. That's how Swytchd tries to match it. Starts at about 30,000 for the Tigor, top model, which is the top model. Goes to about 60,000 for the MG ZSEV and the Kona. Right? And the Nexon is smack bang in the middle at 40,000, which is the XE Lux Plus model. All the works, sunroof, automatic headlights, white leather seats, the fantastic sound system, or literally all the works. We don't want the customer to feel like they're getting into a vehicle that, is the entry model. That's not something we want to do.
Right. You're operational in Bangalore, right? Are there plans for expansion? What's the team size? And if I'm a consumer who wants to, if I'm Bangalore, I want to leverage that. How do is there an app?
So we're in Bangalore at the moment. Swytchd is less than 1 year old at the moment, right? So it still needs some time to expand. We will be expanding. We'll be announcing our fundraise fairly soon. Hopefully by the end of this month, we can do that. And we'll be moving to other parts of India, namely South India first, and then to the north of India. The plan is to add more than 1,000 vehicles in the next 12 months, right? To really get enough vehicles out there to leverage our scale, get more customers, reduce the overall impact. By the way, Swytchd is carbon negative. If you didn't know, we actually don't produce any CO2. The more vehicles we add, the more we take out of the countries. There's a handful of companies in the world that are carbon negative. Swytchd is one of them. There is an application getting built today. If you want to join Swytchd, you go to Swychtd's website and you join the waitlist. Unfortunately, it's still a waitlist. The demand is significantly higher than supply, almost 8 times in some cases, to what I actually have available to give out. We have a warehouse been empty for almost 2 months now. As soon as a vehicle comes, it goes out. But the application should be available for customers in the next 60 days. And it's not just to book or subscribe, it's also to manage your vehicle, manage your subscription, unlock your vehicle, see the charge status, find chargers. So it's a comprehensive subscription platform and EV platform on its own.
We have such a huge problem with the climate crisis, and everybody needs to come together to try and solve this problem, because it is an existential threat. It's just that we are not addressing it as one. But companies such as yourself, who are laying the building blocks of this cleaner way to commute, travel, I think will go a long way in possibly reversing this climate crisis that we are faced with. So kudos to you and the team. We wish you the very best. If there are entrepreneurs or startups who want to build a business in this line, what would be your advice to them?
I think, so I'm a first-time entrepreneur, so never done it before. Just been a corporate guy since the time I left, while I was at university and since then. I think, there's a few things that I've learned that are probably extremely difficult if you're in entrepreneurship or you want to become one. One, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? 2, it's going to cost you a lot of time. And you need to make sure that the time you're going to dedicate, you're happy to lose. 99% of all startups fail. They're never able to raise any money and they stop, right? By the time you raise any money, you're lucky enough. Then you may still fail after that, right? Seed round, again, there's a very small that make it a Series A and so on and so forth. So you need to be okay with that fact. And secondly, I think the most crucial thing you need to have is perseverance. Just as human nature, we love saying, "Nahi kaam karega," this is not going to work. You'll hear it everywhere. You'll hear it all the time, right? You'll hear it from your family, from your friends, from the authorities. Transport is a regulated industry. They'll say it won't work. They won't even give you a license because they don't think it's going to work. Well, it's not in there. They can't deny you a license. It's a law that if I apply for a license, I have to get it if I meet the criteria. So, don't get disheartened because everyone will say no. You won't get funding. You'll be not sleeping. I've lost 10 kilograms of weight, right, since I started my entrepreneurship journey. But hopefully there's reward at the end of the tunnel. And as long as you're learning and you feel like there's something good coming out of it for you, then I think it's the right decision. But genuinely, for anyone thinking entrepreneurship, please think about it over days, not over a night.
Wish you the very best, Sameer. Yeah, but yeah, I think the new bunch of entrepreneurs are extremely resilient, and they are pushing the barriers of what once we termed impossible, because the kind of innovation and entrepreneurs who are doing cool stuff is really, really mind-boggling. What's the roadmap ahead for you and Swytchd?
Yeah, so for Swytchd, it's primarily scaling. We want to, we have a very large wait list. We want to give people more vehicles. We have to get more vehicles out there. That's the fundamental thing. And to really leverage our expertise and knowledge and our tech to also help other companies who may want to do something similar, to give the government data on usage statistics, on how much CO2 is being removed from the environment, actually make an impact. I'm actually asthmatic, so the more vehicles that I put on the road is better for someone like me to breathe in a city. And there's hundreds of thousands of people like me who will benefit. So really make an impact on human life as well. And get Swytchd to a point where we can get the next round of funding, a larger round where we can scale across India, right? And really prove out this concept at this stage that it is now. And for me, I want to continue leading this. It's my journey. It's my first entrepreneurial journey. I would like to see it scale, and it's my baby in that sense. I am generally wanting to create a lot more employment as well. I want people to come into Swytchd, learn, experience electric vehicles, learn how to live with them, and spread the word as well at the same time. As long as I can try lots of new cars and bikes, I'll be very happy. Why not?
Could you briefly share your views on the future of mobility, what the future of mobility looks like here in India?
Yeah, I think the future of mobility in India is probably slightly different to the rest of the world, but not so much more than we think, right? So there's going to be sets of different kinds of transportation. There's obviously public transport from a metro standpoint, buses standpoint, that will continue to evolve. That's needed. Then we obviously are now very well versed with ride hailing, which will continue to expand in some way. But I think Ubers and Olas have a lot of work to do to improve to what they were used to be, right? They become expensive, they become smelly and dirty. And the worst part is they cancel all the time. A consumer is so now used to pressing and saying, come get me, that they don't want to wait. The hours of waiting for cancellation is ridiculous, right? So they have some work to do, and which is why Blue Smart and Envy, companies like that are now coming in, where it's like, we'll own the asset, we'll give you a driver, we'll be professional in an electric vehicle. I think that's fantastic. But personal mobility, you cannot get away from. You cannot get away from personal mobility. It is needed either because for commute, or for groceries, or to just because you need a personal mobility. So I think those will continue, and shared mobility will, over the next, I think, 5 to 10 years, become a more common, more apt thing. Eddie, our lives are getting expensive, right? Inflation, everything expensive, and we want more things. Our phones are getting more expensive. We all want a new phone all the time. Our rents are going up, but our salaries are not going up. Right? So if you need mobility and mobility comes at a price, then an alternative business model or ownership model or shared mobility is needed. So companies like Swytchd, companies like Vogo, Zoomcar, we're all trying to hit a certain kind of mobility segment because we're all betting on the fact that consumers will expand to it. And I think Indians will adapt and Indians will get onto it, especially in metropolitan cities. Very easy to convince someone. In a tier 2, tier 3 city, it's very different. They don't have the needs of immediate travel. They're very happy to wait. So as the urgency comes in, as wealth increases and our need to spend our wealth on other factors go up, mobility will take a different approach to what India sees it as now.
Lovely. Sameer, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Wish you the very best. I think you guys are doing something really, really fantastic. And I hope this trend is followed and more startups look at these kind of business model where you cut out the hassle for the consumer and make EVs accessible for everyone, which will have a larger impact on the environment also. So thank you once again for being part of the podcast. To my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Sameer. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Super.